Hey, welcome. Today we're talking about something really powerful, that feeling of being stuck. It's more than just being in a rut. It's when you feel like a past event has you pinned down. We're going to dig into why that happens, and more importantly, we'll look at a real clear path to moving forward.
Have you ever felt that? Like a past experience just isn't in the past? It feels like it has this grip on your present, right? Affecting your relationships, what you want out of life, everything.
So in this explainer, we're going to break down the why, like what's actually happening when trauma keeps us stuck. And then we're going to walk through a proven, research-backed therapy that's designed for one thing, helping you get unstuck.
All right, so let's start with the problem itself. What does it actually mean to be stuck when we talk about this in a more official way? Well, it often comes down to a diagnosis you've probably heard of, post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD.
Now think of it this way, and this is so important. PTSD isn't a sign that you're weak, not at all. It's really a problem of non-recovery. See, after something awful happens, our brains have this amazing, natural way of processing and healing. But sometimes that process just gets blocked. The whole system gets jammed up.
So what does being stuck actually feel like? Well, it can show up in a bunch of ways, like those intrusive memories or nightmares that just pop into your head out of nowhere. Or maybe you find yourself actively avoiding people or places that remind you of what happened. It could be feeling constantly on edge, hyper aware of everything around you. And it can also be more internal too. These really strong negative beliefs that it was somehow your fault or that the world is just a completely dangerous place now.
Okay, so what's happening in the brain? This slide breaks it down really simply. You've got an alarm system, that's your amygdala, and its job is to scream danger. And during a trauma, you bet it's supposed to fire. But in PTSD, that alarm gets stuck in the on position. It just keeps ringing. Meanwhile, the thinking center of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, which should be the one saying, hey, calm down, the danger's over, well, it's having a really hard time getting that message through to shut the alarm off.
Now, when that alarm is blaring 24/7, one of the most natural human reactions is to try and avoid it, right? But as we're about to see, that very instinct can actually become a trap.
How many times have we heard this? Just forget about it. Put it behind you. And look, it usually comes from a good place, from people who care. But when it comes to trauma, that advice can accidentally make things worse. It reinforces the very thing that keeps people stuck.
And this slide shows you exactly how that trap works. It's a vicious cycle. First, an unwanted memory pops up. So to cope, you push it away. Maybe you get super busy or have a drink or just flat out refuse to think about it. And for a second, you feel some relief. But here's the kicker. Because that memory was never really processed, it comes back. And a lot of the time, it comes back even stronger. And the cycle just starts all over again.
For some people, this becomes a habit that lasts for years. Like for one woman, Cynthia, avoidance became her main coping mechanism. She was essentially boxing up her memories, trying to pretend the past didn't exist. But all that does is prevent the mind from ever truly processing what happened.
So, if avoidance is the trap, how in the world do you get out? Well, this brings us to the solution. It's a specific, really focused therapy called cognitive processing therapy, or CPT for short.
Now, the crucial thing to get about CPT is that it's not about just talking about your feelings endlessly. It's a skills-based approach. It helps you zero in on the specific thoughts. They call them stuck points that grow out of the trauma. It's all about teaching your brain's thinking center how to re-examine what happened and finally turn off that stuck alarm.
And listen, this isn't just some new idea. CPT is one of the most effective, evidence-based treatments for PTSD out there. We're talking about its effectiveness being shown in around 40, that's 40, carefully controlled studies with all kinds of people, from military veterans to survivors of sexual assault. It works.
So how does it actually work? Well, the core of CBT is built on this really powerful distinction. And for a lot of people, this is the real aha moment of the whole therapy. Understanding the difference between two kinds of emotions.
This fire analogy just nails it. Think about natural emotions, like the fear, sadness, or anger that come right from the event itself. Those are like a fire in a fireplace. If you just let them be, they will eventually burn themselves out. But then you have manufactured emotions, like guilt and shame. These are different. These are fueled by our thoughts, the thought logs we keep throwing on the fire. Thoughts like, it was all my fault. Those logs are what keep the fire blazing out of control. So where do these thought logs even come from? Well, a lot of the time they come from these deep-seated beliefs we pick up as kids. One of the most common is this just world myth. You know, the idea that the world is fair. Good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people.
And then a traumatic event happens, and it just shatters that myth completely. It's undeniable proof that bad things can happen to good people. To make sense of that chaos, our brain just scrambles for an explanation. And so often, where does it land? Self-blame. The logic, even if it's subconscious, is if it's my fault, then maybe I have some control. Maybe I can stop it from happening again. And that self-blame becomes this massive thought log that fuels all that guilt and shame.
Okay, so this brings us to the path forward. How does CPT actually help people spot these thought logs and start taking back their lives?
For someone with a long and complex history of trauma, like Isabel, I mean, just look at this timeline. The idea of where to even begin can feel totally overwhelming. CPT handles this by having you focus on one index event, the memory that's causing the most trouble for you right now. You start there, and the therapy teaches you the skills that you can then use on other difficult memories down the line.
Here's a really clear example. After his friend was killed, Reynaldo's main stuck point was this intense guilt. I should have been there. I could have prevented it. Through CPT, he learned how to step back and actually examine the facts. Was it realistic to think he could have stopped what happened? And as he started to challenge that thought, that manufactured guilt started to fade away, and that made room for the natural emotions, grief and sadness, to finally come up, run their course, and eventually ease up.
And this really gets to the realistic and hopeful goal of recovery. The point isn't to make the memory go away. It doesn't get erased. Instead, the emotional charge gets neutralized. It becomes a memory of something that happened in the past instead of something that feels like it's happening all over again right here, right now. Its hold on you is so much less.
So I want to leave you with a question, and it comes from the very heart of this therapy. It's an invitation to maybe look at our own lives and ask, what are the thoughts, the beliefs, the stories we tell ourselves that might just be the thought logs keeping our own fires burning? What stuck point might be keeping you from moving forward?